Okay, so now let's talk about the way that those different theories and things that can help us make principles to base how we're going to not run this ministry, but how we can kind of like have this little sub level of principles, right? Because obviously this ministry is going to have its main level of like, well, this is what we do to keep kids safe. This is how we practice the gospel. But it kind of has this little underlying level that people might not know about. It's kind of like the subconscious level stuff of, well, how are we in all of that we're doing, helping like learn English. And so the two biggest things here really are nativism and social interaction. Behaviorism is, I think, can still be beneficial if you kind of have that ESL professional making a class again, or maybe in homework help, it could be helpful modeling how the student should write a paper or modeling how the student should say a sentence. But the biggest thing really, I think, in this context, since we don't have that formal aspect, is nativism and social interactionism. One, nativism is kind of about that immersion factor. It's going to be immersed, right? Majority of our kids are English speaking. Majority of our volunteers are English speaking. We might have a couple that can speak Spanish to help the kids out if crucially necessary, but that kind of leans into the first principle. So let me, before I get ahead of myself, read the first principle, which is learners naturally have the ability to learn another language when immersed in an environment where that language is the primary language. So let me break that down. Essentially, learners will naturally be able to learn a language that they are fully immersed in. So in this situation, that looks like ensuring that we are using English with these kids as much as we possibly can, because I believe firmly that they will pick up on it naturally, right? When I went to the Dominican, I picked up on Spanish naturally because I was immersed in the environment. I'm sure when I go to Spain this summer, it'll be the same thing. And so I want to make sure that we use English as much as possible so they can hear it as much as possible, but also making sure that we don't do too much, kind of going back to that affective filter, which actually I'm jumping ahead of myself again. Second principle. Interaction with people of higher and lower levels is crucial for the development of language. And so what that means is we have all these varying levels from completely fluent, my fluent English speakers, right? And my non-fluent English speakers. So from all over the spectrum. And it's important that people from up here interact with people from down here and people from here, like from everywhere on the spectrum interact with the different levels. Why? Because it allows for that zone of proximal development, right? It allows for social interactionism, where we're kind of having these higher level learners kind of give just a little hand into there so they can pull them up a little bit further than they were before, right? And whether that's those of us that are completely fluent, like myself, whether that's the students that just barely a little bit further than them, right? So they can give them that I+1 just enough. That's important, is to make sure that in our activities, right? And so kind of like what this looks like is that in the activities that we do, whether it's in homework help, whether we're doing some kind of activity like game-wise or something, we make sure that we intentionally pair students so that way that they are with different levels, so that way they can have that opportunity to be pulled forward as much as possible, right? And so that's kind of how that would shape the ministry, right? So one, nativism. So it's natural for them to learn. They're an L2 in this like environment, right? Just like they learned their L1. And so we want to try to make sure that we provide that as much as possible by speaking English as much as possible, speaking the L2 as much as possible. Second is going to be with the social interaction piece. And so that's going to be making sure that whenever we can, whether in homework help, whether in games, whatever it might be, where they're going to have to communicate and they're going to have to use English some way, we try to get different levels to help pull each other forward, right? Not only does it help the lower level learner, if a higher level learner is interacting with them, it helps the higher level learner because they are having to teach. When you teach it reinforces things more, right? And so by allowing a higher level to interact with a lower level, then not only is it going to pull that lower level up, it's going to help the higher level reinforce what they're teaching even more. And then our third principle is this is a lot of like interaction. This is a lot of using English. This is a lot like we're fully immersed. So there's going to be a lot of English all the time. And so the third principle, kind of going off that affective filter, is that learners need to be in an environment where they're comfortable and anxiety is lessened. And so it's important that we use that affective filter to realize, hey, anxiety is huge. Anxiety is huge. Self-esteem is huge. Motivation is huge. They're going to get anxious being fully immersed. They're going to get anxious not being able to communicate exactly what they want to communicate in their L1, right? And so we need to make sure we give room, whether that's a space. I would love to have a space or a room in the building where it's like low dim lights. There's like coloring books. There's poppets. There's all these different kind of like soothing things where they, like, if they're getting overwhelmed, we bring them there for a little while. We let them just kind of chill out, just have some fun things where they can interact. There's no language learning whatsoever because we don't want to overstress them. So we need to make sure we give room for there to be that area where they can go and chillax and calm down and kind of like take that mental break. Otherwise, they're just going to go way too far. And so those are our 3 principles, right? They learn in immersion. They need social interaction with different levels to learn. And they need to be in an area that reduces anxiety. And so that's why we, 1, fully immerse them. 2, ensure to be intentional when pairing students and for different activities and different things. And 3, why we have an area provided for to help them calm down, to help them reduce that anxiety, and also ensuring that we teach our volunteers how to realize, oh, this kid's starting to shut down from using too much English. He's not ready for this amount of level, so we need to take him back. We need to let him calm down a little bit, right? And so in the next I kind of briefly discussed using activities to pair them up or that kind of thing, or like different immersion. And so in the next activity, I want to discuss specifically how like a lesson plan will work. Since we're not in a formal kind of area, it's going to be a little bit different. And so we'll discuss how lesson planning works in the next video.